turn to one of the most powerful Democrats in all of Congress. Adam Schiff is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He's also a congressman from Burbank. Congressman, good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Alex.
And it's always good to see a peek into people's spaces, and your place is literally worldly.
Well, we're all learning how to telework, and this is part of it.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what comes next in Congress. You already passed that $2 trillion bill, and now there's speculation about another bill. What's the most important thing that you're trying to get in the next stimulus bill?
I think probably the most important thing is both additional help to those on the front lines of fighting the pandemic, our healthcare workers, our hospitals, our clinics, and our states, but also making sure that there's sufficient economic relief that families and small businesses can stay afloat. And I think we're certainly going to have to supplement the funding for small businesses. We got to make sure that the unemployment compensation system has the resources it needs. And we got to make sure that that relief gets out quickly. So I think those are the top priorities, but we're also looking at filling the gaps, any gaps where businesses or health providers are left out. I'm working, for example, Elex, the LGBT Center, which is a major healthcare center in our district, has more than 500 employees and may not qualify for the small business assistance. Certainly, we want all the healthcare clinics to be able to get the help they need to keep their doors open and treat patients. So we're looking for gaps to fill and make sure that we get the relief out there quickly.
Yeah, we've profiled that center several times. They do really important work. Meanwhile, something else you're pushing for, when this is all said and done, is a 9/11 style commission to look at what went wrong. How likely is that going to happen, and what are you seeing as what went wrong?
I think it's very likely we're going to establish a commission along these lines. There is bipartisan support for the concept. I've introduced legislation to try to establish a very objective commission that would begin its work early next year, so we don't want it to interfere with the relief effort going on now. Senators Feinstein and Harris are introducing companion legislation in the Senate. But what happened with the 9/11 Commission is the victims and their families demanded objective answers as to why their loved ones lost their lives. I think that's going to happen here as well, with all the victims of the coronavirus now, 3 times as many as we lost on 9/11, and sadly more to come. People are going to want to know, why wasn't America better prepared? Why was there so much confusion in the response? Why wasn't testing done immediately? Why didn't we have the protective gear and ventilators in stock? There are a lot of questions that are going to need answers, and most important, what do we do to protect the country going forward?
One of the questions that some people have about the news this week is the president fired the Inspector General Atkinson in the middle of all of this. You're the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. You oversee this. Are you concerned about this, which I know you are, and why do you think the president chose to do this?
I'm deeply concerned about it. Michael Atkinson, the Inspector General of the intelligence community, was is a widely respected professional, respected by people in both parties on the Hill for his objectivity. And the president made clear why he was firing him. It was retaliation. Michael Atkinson informed the Congress, as he was legally required to do, that a whistleblower complaint had been filed. He found it urgent and credible, and it was not being turned over to Congress by the acting director of national intelligence in violation of the law. So he did what he was supposed to do. And for that, the president fired him. But also, the president has been taking action against several other inspectors general. He castigated the Health and Human Services Inspector General for reporting that hospitals didn't have the gear they need. And he has also removed the Inspector General who was supposed to oversee the pandemic relief package and provide oversight for the trillions of dollars that are going out. And this is part of the president's effort, I think, to really neuter any kind of oversight of what he and his administration do. And that just doesn't sit well with anyone, I think, in Congress. And it shouldn't sit well with the American people who want to make sure that their tax dollars are going to go to helping hospitals and clinics and families in need, and not become some kind of a corporate slush fund.
So what can you do about it?
Well, we're doing an overview and oversight in our committee about the causes behind the firing of this Inspector General. We are proposing new legislation that would protect inspector generals so they can only be fired for good cause. And we're going to find out where there are other things that this inspector general was working on that also may have led to his firing in an effort to make those investigations of malfeasance go away. So we're going to do our oversight, but it really requires both parties to commit to the institution, to the Congress, but also to the institution of inspector generals, which was established as a Watergate reform to weed out fraud and abuse and corruption. There used to be bipartisan support for that kind of independent watchdog. We'll find out if that's still a bipartisan priority.
Let's talk about the issue of voting itself. We have seen certain primaries that have been suspended because of this. We know there's special elections in California that are going to be vote by mail only in the coming weeks. What do you think about vote by mail in terms of November, and should that be the national standard?
I think it should be the national standard. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't have the opportunity to go to the polling place. But I think that postage-paid ballots should be sent to every American in the fall election, every American eligible to vote and registered to vote. That will make sure that people don't have to choose, as they recently did in Wisconsin, their health or their vote. You should be able to enjoy your franchise and good health. And to put voters in that circumstance, I think, is unconscionable. But, Elex, there are people who want to suppress the vote. And one of them is the President of the United States, who said that if all Americans voted, essentially, Republicans couldn't get elected. That may be true. I don't know. It doesn't show much faith in the popularity or lack of popularity of their platform. But we should have more devotion to the institution of our democracy and the franchise and voting than to try to artificially suppress the vote by essentially forcing people to choose their health or going to the polling place. So I think everyone should be mailed a ballot. They should have the opportunity also to go in and vote for 30 days before the election, up to Election Day. We should be expanding access to voting, not trying to constrict it politically.
Although it's interesting, the president says all that, and yet he himself chose to vote by mail in Florida. It was good enough for him to do.
Yes, and you know, of course, consistency has never been his hallmark. But the reality is that many in the Republican leadership have said for years that if more people vote, then they're going to be losing elections. And so they want fewer people voting. It's really hard to wrap your head around, but that's where they are politically. That's their political business model. It's why they have enacted voter ID laws and closed down polling places in urban centers to make it more difficult for people to vote, not easier. But there's no indication of greater fraud in absentee voting. Indeed, the one graphic illustration of fraud involved the Republican Party in North Carolina.
Right.
So if there's been a guilty party there, it hasn't been among the Democratic Party. But nonetheless, there are ways to put safeguards in place, and no one should have to choose their health or their vote.
A couple other quick questions just to wrap things up. There are so many people that are really hurting right now, Congressman, in a way that we perhaps have never seen in our lifetime. What's your bottom line message to all the folks that are anxious and scared?
Well, and I know people have heard this before, but it really helps to reinforce it. We are going to get through this. And what we do right now will determine how quickly we get through it and minimize the loss of life. But we're going to get through this. The country has been through more significant challenges, far more significant challenges in the past. Maybe not in pandemic form since the Spanish flu, but we've been through world wars, we've been through a civil war, we've been through a Vietnam War, and this too shall pass. We will get through this. And if you are in need of help, reach out to others. There are lots of individuals and organizations that can help with food or help with medicine. You need help applying for small business loans through the SBA. And you're a constituent of mine, call me or call your own member of Congress if you're living somewhere else. We can help also in tracking down problems with the Unemployment Compensation Office, and they're overwhelmed right now. So there is help available, but have the confidence of knowing we are going to get through this. I think, Elex, whenever you're in a crisis, it's hard to see when it's going to end or even if it's going to end, but it does come to an end. Mm-hmm. This too shall pass, and the country will come back.
And lastly, quarantine lifestyle is different for everybody. What's quarantine lifestyle for you? I know you work all the time, but are you binging anything? Is there anything that you're doing differently now because you are getting to spend more time at home? Give us some insight.
Well, I'm spending so much time now on the phone and telephone town halls, doing Zoom conferences. And one thing I realized about myself is how much I really like being around other people and don't particularly like being on the phone. So spending more hours on the phone per day than I would usually do in a couple of weeks. I try to get out and get some fresh air once a day and go for a walk or a hike or a bike ride, stay away from other people. But I will tell you this, when my schedule does permit, I'm very much a night owl, and I've reverted back to law school when I would stay up till 2 in the morning and then sleep late. And if I could put the whole world on my schedule, then we wouldn't open until 10 in the morning and we could all stay up till 2 a.m.
Well, that is literally my schedule, so there you go.
Okay.
I noticed you didn't say Tiger King, so there you go.
No. The rest of my family is watching that, but I refuse.
Okay. Congressman, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we hope you and your family stay healthy during this tough time.
Oh, can I tell you one other thing, Alex?
Sure.
I'm watching some classics. Saw The Shawshank Redemption the other week. Fantastic. Tonight on the viewing menu, I'm going to be watching Diner again.
Oh, very nice. There you go. Old school. We like it.
Yes.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much.
Thanks.